Like and subscribe for more content.
The Fifth and 14th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution guarantee both due process and equal protection under the law. These are not merely abstract legal concepts. They are vital safeguards against arbitrary government action and discriminatory treatment. Understanding their practical application is crucial for every American citizen. Due process, enshrined in the Fifth Amendment, applying to the federal government, and the 14th Amendment, applying to state and local governments, essentially means that the government must act fairly and reasonably in its dealings with individuals. It's not simply a matter of following procedures. It requires that those procedures be fundamentally fair and just. Due process has two main components: procedural due process and substantive due process. Procedural due process focuses on the procedures the government must follow before depriving someone of life, liberty, or property. This isn't limited to criminal prosecutions. It applies to a wide range of governmental actions, including license revocations, welfare benefits terminations, and even school disciplinary proceedings. The level of process required depends on the stakes involved. A minor traffic violation might only require a simple notice and hearing, whereas a more serious offense like felony charges necessitates far greater procedural safeguards, such as the right to an attorney, the right to confront witnesses, and the right to a jury trial as guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment. Imagine a hypothetical scenario. You're pulled over for a minor traffic infraction. The officer, without probable cause, searches your car, finding contraband. This would likely violate your Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable searches and seizures. However, even if the evidence were admissible, perhaps the officer had reasonable suspicion, the procedural due process element kicks in. You have the right to contest the ticket, to appear in court, and to present evidence in your defense. This is a fundamental aspect of procedural due process, ensuring fairness in even relatively minor encounters with law enforcement. A more egregious violation might occur if you were subjected to excessive force by the police during the stop. That could potentially lead to a civil rights lawsuit, alleging violation of your procedural due process rights. The court would then evaluate whether the police acted reasonably under the circumstances, considering factors such as the nature of the offense, the officer's response, and the level of resistance, if any. This evaluation is a crucial aspect of assessing whether the process itself was fair and just. Substantive due process, on the other hand, focuses on the substance of the government's actions. It asks whether the government's actions are fundamentally fair and reasonable, regardless of the procedures followed. This often involves protecting fundamental rights not explicitly mentioned in the Constitution, such as the right to privacy or the right to raise one's family. The Supreme Court has used substantive due process to strike down laws that are considered overly intrusive or arbitrary, even if they were enacted following proper procedures. Consider a hypothetical zoning law that prohibits the building of houses that are within a certain distance of a park. If this zoning law were applied selectively, only to those of certain ethnic backgrounds, it could arguably be a violation of substantive due process. Even if the city followed all correct procedures in enacting the ordinance, the underlying policy would be unconstitutional if it was based on discriminatory intent. The court would then assess the actual effect of the ordinance, examining whether it has a disproportionate impact on any particular protected group. This shows that the substance of government action, not just the procedure, must be fair and reasonable. Equal protection, primarily found in the 14th Amendment, mandates that similarly situated individuals be treated equally under the law. The government cannot discriminate against individuals based on certain protected characteristics, such as race, religion, national origin, gender, or disability. This doesn't mean that the government can never treat people differently. It means that differences in treatment must be justified by a legitimate government interest and be narrowly tailored to achieve that interest. This is typically analyzed under different levels of scrutiny, depending on the classification used. Strict scrutiny is applied when the government classifies individuals based on a suspect classification, such as race or national origin, or infringes on a fundamental right, such as voting or interstate travel. Under strict scrutiny, the government must demonstrate that the classification is necessary to achieve a compelling governmental interest. This is a very high bar, and such classifications are often struck down. Intermediate scrutiny is used for classifications based on gender or illegitimacy. Here, the government must show that the classification is substantially related to an important governmental interest. This is a less demanding standard than strict scrutiny, but still requires a significant justification. Rational basis review is the lowest level of scrutiny. It is applied to most other classifications, and the government only needs to demonstrate that the classification is rationally related to a legitimate governmental interest. This is a very deferential standard, meaning that courts generally uphold laws that meet this test. Consider a hypothetical scenario involving employment discrimination. An employer refuses to hire an individual because of their religion. This would likely violate the Equal Protection Clause, as the employer's action constitutes discrimination based on a protected characteristic. The individual could potentially bring a lawsuit under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits employment discrimination based on religion, among other things. The courts would then analyze the employer's justification for not hiring the individual, applying a strict scrutiny standard, since religion is a suspect classification. If the employer fails to present a compelling interest and demonstrate that refusing to hire the individual based on their religious beliefs is necessary to achieve that compelling interest, the court may rule in the employee's favor. The Supreme Court has addressed countless cases involving both due process and equal protection. Cases like Brown v. Board of Education, 1954, profoundly impacted the interpretation of equal protection, dismantling the legal framework of racial segregation in schools. The landmark decision established that separate but equal facilities were inherently unequal, violating the 14th Amendment. This case demonstrates the transformative power of equal protection litigation in dismantling discriminatory systems. Similarly, Roe v. Wade, 1973, while controversial, involved substantive due process arguments concerning the right to privacy and bodily autonomy. Understanding due process and equal protection is not just about memorizing legal definitions. It's about recognizing how these principles manifest in daily life. They are the cornerstones of a just and equitable society, protecting individuals from arbitrary government actions and ensuring that all citizens are treated fairly under the law. Knowing your rights under these fundamental constitutional guarantees empowers you to challenge injustice and participate more fully in our democracy. From interactions with law enforcement to navigating employment situations or dealing with government agencies, awareness of your due process and equal protection rights is essential to securing a fair and just outcome. The knowledge of these principles arms you against potential overreach and empowers you to actively protect your fundamental rights as a citizen of the United States.
Like and subscribe to support the channel. Donations welcome.